Okay, I want to I want to preface this video by saying that if you believe that the definition of inflation is anything other than the increase in M2 money supply or just the uh, increase in the money supply, and I don't mean physical cash printed. Physical cash printed is the final that is the final stage of debt monetization. Most US dollars in existence have not yet been printed. That's a misconception. But anyway, if you think that inflation is anything other than an increase in M2, then you have been brainwashed and you're probably an academic. Or if you're not an academic, you've been influenced by the news or some academic nonsense because Austrian economics is not really taught in universities at all. You might know just enough to be able to hold a conversation about it, but if you think inflation has anything to do with the CPI, then you are brainwashed. Anyway, so the what I wanted to talk about was right now we are in a global debt war, a currency war. The United States is doing everything that it can. The U.S. government is doing everything to maintain the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. The U.S. dollar remaining the world reserve currency fuels the corruption in Washington. It fuels the military-industrial complex, and it's dying. The dollar is a dying asset, and the U.S. government is doing everything it can to keep it alive. So, as many people are aware, the White House is saber rattling like mad, signaling to the world that there's going to be a breakout of war between Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. I do not think that's going to happen. Okay, I wouldn't be too surprised if it did, but I honestly I do not think that there's going to be an outbreak, a significant outbreak of war in that region. I don't, but it could happen. However, what the saber rattling is doing, okay, it's causing people to make a fear trade. People are moving into the U.S. dollar as a way to hedge fear. They are moving money into bonds, and this is coinciding with the Fed's actions or the Fed's jawboning. The Fed is signaling that they're going to be reducing their balance sheet and raising interest rates. So here's what I want to say on that. The Fed is going to raise interest rates several times, as much as it can get away with. Now, they may slightly, insignificantly taper their balance sheet as well. Regardless of what the Fed does over the course of the next, we'll say 12 to 18 months, the end goal will then be to completely reverse course, drop interest rates probably into the negatives, and to balloon their balance sheet. The reason that they could get away with raising interest rates is because real interest rates are already negative. So real interest rates are at historic lows. They're lower than they've ever been because inflation is so high. Now, how is inflation being hidden? There's a few ways. One, these unenforceable mandates that were that the U.S. White House put out, that they knew were unenforceable, that they knew that the Supreme Court was going to strike down, that they knew people weren't going to listen to, except people who already were cucks anyway. These mandates affected supply chains. Now, remember, before the mandates, we were already having supply chain issues. But now, with trucker protests and all kinds of things going on and supply chain disruptions, what this is doing is this is all about keeping the economy locked up. It's all about keeping things slowed down. This has been their game since the fake nonsense that started in 2020. Okay, it's all about locking the economy down and preventing cash from moving too quickly to slow money velocity. Why? Because they want to hide inflation as much as possible. They want to hide the rate at which cash is changing hands in the economy. They are trying to suppress it. That's why they locked down the economy, and that is why they are now using mandates and all this crap to gaslight people and to trick them into thinking that all the supply chain, all this stuff, it's temporary, and it has nothing to do with inflation. It has everything to do with inflation, and the very fact that they're telling us that inflation, that's the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is 7.5%, means that real inflation is much hotter. The fact that they're even admitting that it's 7.5%. Housing, tuition, not to mention, well, Bitcoin and other things. These are not concluded. Healthcare, tuition, housing are just three things that are not included in the Consumer Price Index. So it is a number that's been manipulated for decades. This is all about slowing money to velocity, hiding how much inflation there actually is. The way that we handled this crisis back in the 1970s, when the U.S. went off the gold standard, was we negotiated a deal with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia only accepts dollars for oil. That system is dying. We're going to see oil. People are complaining about like $3-4 a gallon gas now. Like, oil is going to go to new all-time highs within the next couple of years. It's going to be nightmarishly high. Okay, so you can just get ready for that right now. However, back in 2020, when this debt crisis first began, or this chapter of the debt crisis began, crude oil actually went down to negative $40 a barrel when the market crashed. How could oil be trading in the negatives? It became more of a liability to actually hold it than to get rid of it, to pay to get rid of it. This is going to happen at one point. This is going to happen in the debt market. Okay. It's going to be more of a liability to hold U.S. debt, whether you're a country, an individual. The main holders are central banks. They're playing their own game. They're playing a game of hot potato with each other. This is all right, and it's all run by the Fed. At one particular point, the bond market is going to sell off. It's going to sell off rapidly, as is the stock market. This money is going to rush into commodities. This is when all the inflation that's been hidden for decades is going to be made manifest. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, probably some other cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin's really the only one that I love. Anyway, but gold, silver, Bitcoin, oil, groceries, everything. So if they can continue to increase M2, increase the amount of money that they're handing to banks and corporations, and the amount of debt that you're allowed to roll over as close to the money spigot as you could possibly get. If they can continue to keep this game going and increasing the amount of money and suppressing the amount of inflation at the low end, so the little guy, the mass population, they're seeing their goods and services go up as far as groceries and things like that by 7.5%. If they can double, quadruple, and just continue to increase the money supply and keep CPI relatively low and to distract people and think that that's the real rate of inflation, then banks can continue to get more powerful. Theft can continue to go on. More and more assets can be bought up with artificially suppressed debt. And when this finally implodes, and money leaves the debt market and causes commodities to correct to fair value, because they're artificially suppressed with a quite frankly an artificially strong dollar. It's going which is going to zero. The dollar is going to die. There's going to be a rug pull. And if you can understand that, and you can understand the petrodollar system, and you can understand that everything geopolitically, first and foremost, is affected by the US dollar as the world reserve currency. If you don't understand the petrodollar system, I don't care if you have a PhD or master's degree or where the fuck you went to college. I don't care. If you don't understand how the petrodollar system works, you don't know dick about foreign policy. You don't know anything about the world order, the financial system, economics, nothing. Okay? Nothing. I don't give a fuck what your education's worth. So this is what's going on right now. And we are in a currency reset. The US government is behind it. All the propaganda and everything that we're experiencing, everything is directly related to the US dollar. The Fed is buying Congress. The banks are buying Congress. They're buying everything. The banks are buying everything. The Fed is buying everything. And if they taper a little bit, if they raise rates, it doesn't matter, because I can tell you right now, 5 years from now, the Fed's balance sheet is going to be insanely larger than it is now. Insanely larger. And if you don't understand that, and you're listening to CNBC, and you're listening to these academics who are all about presentation, if you want to understand peer pressure in adults, just fucking look at academics. Just look at academics, and you will understand peer pressure for adults. People not thinking for themselves, that are obsessed with presentation, don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There you go. At one particular point, there's going to be a stampede out of the dollar. And there's going to be a panic. Most people's first instinct, I believe, is going to be to rush into precious metals. It's going to be a rush into basic commodities. Obviously, people are going to be buying toilet paper and toothpaste and stuff like that. I stay stocked up on that stuff anyway. I mean, there's no point not. I mean, you're always going to use it. It doesn't hurt to have it, right? But that's going to be people's first instinct. Bitcoin as well. A lot of people, like to talk about Bitcoin's not an inflation hedge and all that. To some, it is a speculative asset. So people who know what Bitcoin is, they care about the lows. Okay. I know what Bitcoin is, and I care about the lows. So I don't care about blow off tops. I care about the yearly lows continue to increase. And all these people who sell and don't know what they're holding and they're trading it and all that shit, I don't care. Like that, they sell off and then I buy the dips, and I don't care. The lows continue to get higher, and that's what matters. So when stock markets crash, gold sells off and Bitcoin sells off. Why? Because people have to cover their asses. People are margin calls. All right. People are selling their safe haven assets to cover their asses. Okay. So when markets tank initially, that's what happens. Gold and Bitcoin sell off just like the rest of the market. But on a long enough timeline, they continue to hold value and move steadily upwards. I don't think the bond market's going to implode yet. It could. I think we can get a few more years out of it. Honestly, geopolitically, things continue to get more and more shaky and uncertain. The longer it takes, I like to think the more. I don't know. The transition is not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be pleasant. We're going to have resource problems, the likes of which we're going to have issues getting chemicals to water treatment plants. Okay. So I just I'm starting to lose sympathy for people who live in la la land and just think, oh, it's going to be some happy family, Great Depression. We'll get through. Yes, it'll suck. It'll suck. We'll get through it, but it'll suck. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be some la la land world. It's going to be pretty massive. We have not experienced it. We have not experienced the consequences of it. We have continued to blow up bubble after bubble after bubble. It continues to get larger and larger and larger. And at some point, we're going to see the actual Fed funds rate go into the negatives. Real interest rates are already negative. And at some point, we are going to see negative rates, negative Fed funds rate. I believe that is their goal, their ultimate goal. The Fed knows what they're doing. The Fed is a global scam. It's a scam. And if you don't see it, then I don't know what to fucking tell you. It's a scam. Doesn't matter that it's a big scam. It's still a scam. It controls everything. And until people wake up and understand what's going on, nothing's going to change. You, every 2 years, being strung along into thinking that elections are going to fix it. The results are pretty damn inconsequential. They're not the results that you're looking for. Okay, 50% of the people don't even know why all this stuff is happening. They don't. Most people have no fucking idea this has to do with the dying dollar. This has everything has to do with the U.S. dollar being the United States remaining the world currency. Everything you're seeing in geopolitics, everything you're seeing in the propaganda, everything you're seeing in the markets. If you don't know that, you don't know dick about what's going on. If you don't know that everything going on around is about maintaining the dollar as the world reserve currency. I've been preaching this for 6 years. And whatever narrative comes out of the Fed, whatever narrative comes out of the media, whatever war, whatever bullshit they have next. In 2020, we knew what it was. But whatever bullshit they have next, I am going to see people that I've been telling about this stuff for 6 years. I'm going to see them continue to persist in their fucking insanity. I don't have any sympathy anymore for it. So cover your asses, buy gold and silver, particularly Bitcoin's the best asset on the face of the earth. Okay, Bitcoin's the best asset. I continue to own equities, and I think markets are going to continue to go insanely higher, until they don't, until all faith is lost. The only way that you can keep faith in the market. The only way you can keep faith in the market is to continue to lie and to continue to propagandize. You need to keep people accepting Federal Reserve notes. You need to force other nations to continue to accept Federal Reserve notes. This is how you keep the game going. The main purchaser of debt now are central banks. They're going to continue to buy mortgage-backed securities. They're going to continue to buy treasury bonds. They're going to continue to be the main buyer while they buy up everything else. It's a scam. It's a fucking scam. So do what you think's best.